My wife lost her memory 3 years ago. Last Tuesday, I took her to see a neurologist in Asheville. When my daughter stepped out to take a call, the doctor's hands trembled as he leaned forward and whispered urgently, "You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately." Before he could explain why, my daughter returned, clutching her designer purse with white knuckles and that same concerned smile she'd worn for months. I'd truly appreciate if you hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're joining me from and what time it is there right now. That doctor's trembling warning would change our lives forever, but let me start from the beginning of this nightmare. I'm Landon Pierce, 65, a retired civil engineer. My wife, Donna, is 62, a former elementary school teacher who used to light up every room. These days, she barely remembers my name some mornings. The decline started gradually. Forgotten glasses repeated stories. I told myself it was normal aging. But then came the morning she couldn't remember her famous apple pie recipe perfected over 30 years. That's when I knew something was wrong. Natasha insisted we see specialists. She drove up from Charlotte every weekend, her heels clicking across our hardwood floors, expensive perfume filling rooms that usually smelled of coffee and Donna's lavender soap. She'd become Donna's primary caregiver by default. As a consulting engineer, I traveled frequently for projects. When Donna worsened, Natasha stepped in seamlessly. But there was something in her eyes I couldn't place. A calculating look when she thought no one was watching. She'd photograph our antique furniture, ask about property deeds, wonder aloud about updating our will. "Dad, you and Mom are getting older," she'd say. "We need to be practical." Power of attorney. "What happens if you can't make decisions?" I always changed the subject. Those conversations made my skin crawl. Dr. Grant was younger than expected, maybe 50, with wire-rimmed glasses and nervous hands. He'd been highly recommended, supposedly one of the best neurologists in western North Carolina. He examined Donna with us present. "Memory tests, coordination, checks questions," she answered with increasing confusion. "What year is it, Mrs. Pierce?" 2021. "Who's the president? Obama or Bush?" My throat tightened. It was 2024. Dr. Grant made urgent notes, hands trembling. "Mr. Pierce, I'd like additional tests. This memory loss is progressing faster than typical decline." He glanced at Natasha. "I need to review her complete medication history. Drug interactions can accelerate cognitive symptoms." "Mom barely takes anything," Natasha said lightly. "Just blood pressure pills and vitamins." "Who manages her medications?" "Natasha does," I said. "She organizes Mom's weekly pill case. She's been incredibly helpful." Something flickered across his face. Alarm. Before I could interpret it, Natasha stood abruptly. "Sorry, I need to take this call." She glanced at her phone, though I hadn't heard it ring. "I'll be right back." The moment the door closed, Dr. Grant's demeanor transformed. He leaned forward, knuckles white against his desk. "Mr. Pierce," he whispered urgently, "you need to get your wife away from your daughter. Immediately." My heart raced. "What are you talking about?" "The medication records the decline pattern, the timeline. I've seen this before. Certain substances can induce symptoms identical to dementia. They cause genuine memory loss, but effects can be reversible if caught early." The room tilted. "What are you saying?" "Your wife might not have dementia at all. She might be." The door opened. Natasha stood there, clutching her purse eyes, moving between us with sharp assessment. "Sorry that took so long," she said smoothly. "Is everything all right, doctor?" The drive home felt longer than usual. I kept glancing at Natasha in the passenger seat, Dr. Grant's urgent whisper echoing in my mind. She sat, rigid fingers drumming against her leather purse, checking her phone every few minutes with nervous energy I'd never seen before. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just work stuff, Dad. You know how it is." But her laugh sounded forced, brittle. She clutched that purse like her life depended on it. Back at our house on Sunset Ridge Drive, Natasha immediately went to the kitchen where she kept Donna's medications organized in a weekly pill dispenser. I watched from the doorway as she methodically sorted tablets into tiny compartments, her movements precise and practiced. "Mom, time for your evening pills," she called out sweetly. Donna shuffled in, wearing her favorite cardigan, the one with small roses that she'd owned for 15 years. She took the pills without question, trusting as a child. The sight made my stomach turn for reasons I couldn't yet articulate. "I think I'll make some tea," Natasha announced. "Dad, why don't you help Mom get settled in the living room?" As I guided Donna to her recliner, fragments of the past 3 years began reassembling in my mind like pieces of a disturbing puzzle. Before her decline, Natasha visited maybe once a month, usually for holidays or special occasions. But as Donna's condition worsened, those visits became weekly, then twice weekly. I'd been grateful then. What loving daughter wouldn't want to spend more time with her ailing mother? Now I remembered other details. How Natasha always insisted on handling Donna's medications. How she'd grown defensive when I suggested we try a different doctor. How she'd pushed for me to travel more, taking on longer consulting contracts. Dad's expertise is in such demand, she'd tell people. Mom and I manage just fine while he's away. The financial troubles had started around the same time. Natasha's messy divorce from Marcus had dragged on for 18 months, bleeding her savings dry. Her ex-husband's lawyer had been ruthless, claiming she'd hidden assets. The settlement left her with crushing debt. $180,000 she'd confided to me, last Christmas tears streaming down her face. I don't know how I'll ever dig out of this hole, Dad. The creditors are calling constantly. I'd offered to help then, but she'd refused. I'm a grown woman. I'll figure it out. Now, watching her move through our kitchen with practiced familiarity, I wondered exactly how she'd planned to figure it out. I'm going to take a quick shower, Natasha announced after settling Donna with her tea. That hospital smell just clings to everything. The moment I heard water running upstairs, something compelled me toward her purse. It sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it expensive Italian leather that must have cost more than she could afford in her current situation. My hands shook as I opened the clasp. I'd never violated my daughter's privacy before, never had reason to doubt her. Inside I found the usual items: wallet, keys, lipstick, breath mints. But tucked into a side compartment, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a small amber prescription bottle. The label had been partially torn off, but I could make out part of the drug name and the crucial detail that made my blood run cold: diazepam, veterinary use only. Veterinary use only? I stared at the bottle, my engineer's mind processing the implications with horrible clarity. This wasn't medication for humans. This was something designed for animals, something that had no business being anywhere near my wife. The shower was still running upstairs. Donna sat peacefully in the living room, humming an old song she used to sing to our children. And in my trembling hands was evidence that the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to braid dandelions into crowns, had been systematically poisoning her own mother. What kind of monster drugs their own mother? The next morning found me at the Asheville Public Library, before opening pacing like a man possessed. Sleep had been impossible. That amber bottle haunted me. Juniper Wells, the young librarian with purple streaks in her hair, unlocked the doors at 9 sharp. She'd helped with my engineering research before. Mr. Pierce working on another project. I need to research a medication. Diazepam, veterinary grade. Her eyebrows shot up, but she didn't ask questions. Within 20 minutes, we'd pulled up medical journals and pharmaceutical databases. What I learned made my hands shake. Diazepam was an animal sedative for anxious pets. In humans, especially elderly ones, it caused drowsiness, confusion, memory loss, and with prolonged use, symptoms virtually indistinguishable from dementia. The effects were dose-dependent and crucially reversible if discontinued. This says prolonged use can cause permanent damage, Juniper noted quietly. Are you researching this for someone specific, someone very close to me? Every symptom matched Donna perfectly. The gradual onset increasing confusion, lost pieces of herself over 3 years. Not Alzheimer's, systematic poisoning. How long for recovery if someone stopped taking this? This study shows cognitive improvement within 24 to 48 hours. Significant recovery over weeks. I printed everything and drove home with a plan. If Donna was being drugged, stopping the medication should prove it. Back home, Donna sat staring blankly at an incomplete crossword. Natasha had returned to Charlotte, wouldn't be back until Friday to refill the pill organizer. I had 3 days. That afternoon I examined Donna's pills, 7 compartments each with 4 tablets. I recognized legitimate prescriptions: blood pressure, cholesterol. But 2 others were unfamiliar, small blue pills not from any prescription I'd authorized. Using my workshop magnifying glass, I found tiny markings: DZ5, diazepam 5 milligrams. I replaced them with similar vitamins, heart pounding. In a way, I was diffusing a bomb. Before dinner, I visited Augustus Vale next door. Augustus was 73, a retired police detective with sharp instincts. Gus, hypothetically, if someone discovered family poisoning, what's the smartest approach? Augustus studied me carefully. Hypothetically, get proof first. Document everything. And be very careful. People who poison don't usually stop at one victim when threatened. That evening, Donna took her modified pills without question. I watched for changes, signs my theory might be correct. 24 hours later, I was reading when Donna appeared in the doorway, more alert than I'd seen in months. She held the crossword puzzle several clues, completed in her familiar handwriting. "Landon," she said, and something in her voice made me look up. Her eyes were clearer, more focused. "Why do I feel so sharp today? 48 hours without the hidden medication transformed my wife. Not because she'd changed, but because I was finally seeing the real Donna, after 3 years of watching her fade. Thursday morning, she was up before me, something that hadn't happened since her decline. I found her cooking breakfast, humming an old Carole King song. The smell of bacon filled the air. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, turning with a smile that reached her eyes. "I thought I'd make your favorite. Remember how you said my scrambled eggs were better than restaurants?" I did remember. More importantly, she remembered. "How are you feeling today?" She paused, considering seriously. "Different. Like I've been walking through fog and suddenly the sun came out." She looked concerned. "Landon, something's been wrong with me, hasn't it? Really wrong?" I sat at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared thousands of meals over 4 decades. How could I tell her our daughter had been poisoning her? "What do you remember about the last few years?" "Pieces. Fragments. Like trying to remember a dream." She served eggs confidently. "I remember feeling lost constantly, scared, like I was disappearing bit by bit." Her voice broke. "I remember you looking at me with such sadness. The woman across from me was my Donna, the teacher who'd helped hundreds of children learn to read. She'd been there all along, trapped behind chemical fog. I kept trying to tell you something was wrong, but words wouldn't come right. I'd forget mid-sentence." She took my hand. I felt like I was drowning Landon, sinking deeper every day, unable to call for help. My throat tightened. "You're not drowning anymore." "No, I'm not. But how did I get better so suddenly?" "What changed?" A car pulled into our driveway, Natasha's silver BMW. "She wasn't supposed to be here until Friday." "That's strange," Donna said. "Natasha's early." I watched our daughter get out, moving with purpose. She had her key, would let herself in as always. In seconds, she'd see Donna alert and coherent. "Donna, listen carefully," I said urgently. "I need you to act like you've been acting for 3 years. Confused, forgetful. Can you do that?" Why would I?" The front door opened. Heels clicked across hardwood. "Mom, Dad, I brought lunch from that deli you like." Donna looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. She understood something was terribly wrong. Natasha appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene. The cooked breakfast. Donna sitting upright and alert. The intelligent awareness that had been absent for years. "Dad," Natasha said slowly, voice carefully controlled. "Mom seems so different today." I could see the wheels turning in Natasha's mind as she processed what she was seeing. Her mother alert and coherent for the first time in years, sitting at a breakfast table with evidence of independent cooking scattered around them. "You look wonderful, Mom," Natasha said carefully, setting down a paper bag from Miller's Deli. "But you must be tired from all this activity. Why don't you take your morning medication and rest?" She moved toward the kitchen counter where Donna's pill organizer sat, but I was faster. "She doesn't need those pills." Natasha's hand froze halfway to the dispenser. "Dad, Mom needs her medication. You know that. Dr. Grant specifically said—" "What medication, Natasha?" I stood between her and the pills. "Describe exactly what you've been giving your mother." Something shifted in her expression. The concerned daughter mask slipped, just slightly. "Her prescriptions. Blood pressure, cholesterol, the supplements for her memory. Memory supplements." I pulled the amber bottle from my pocket, the one I'd found in her purse. "Like this?" The color drained from Natasha's face as she recognized the veterinary diazepam. For a moment, the only sound was Donna's sharp intake of breath as she read the label. "Where did you get that?" Natasha's voice was barely a whisper. "From your purse. The same purse you clutched like a lifeline at Dr. Grant's office." I held up the bottle. "Diazepam, veterinary use only. Want to explain why you're carrying animal tranquilizers?" "Dad, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You've been drugging your mother for 3 years, systematically poisoning her to make her seem incompetent, while you positioned yourself as the devoted caregiver." Natasha's composure cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face as she sank into a kitchen chair. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just to slow her down a little, make her more manageable while you were traveling. Manageable! Donna's voice was horrified. I'm your mother, not a pet. I was drowning. Natasha's voice rose to near hysteria. The divorce, the legal fees, Marcus cleaned out our accounts and left me with nothing. 180,000 in debt creditors calling constantly threatening to garnish my wages, take my condo. She looked between us desperately. I saw how much this house was worth, how much you had saved. I thought if Mom needed more care, if she had to go into a facility, maybe we could work something out with the finances. Just temporarily, until I got back on my feet. So you decided to create the need for that care. I said disgust thick in my voice. I researched it carefully. Small doses, nothing that would really hurt her. Just enough to make her seem confused, forgetful. She was sobbing now, but it got worse and I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to reduce the dose, you'd notice she was better and I'd panic. You destroyed 3 years of her life, 3 years of our marriage. I never meant to hurt her this much. I love Mom. I love both of you. No, you don't. My voice was ice. You love our money. You love what we could give you. Natasha wiped her eyes, and I saw calculation return to her expression. Dad, look at yourself. You're paranoid, making wild accusations. Maybe the stress of caring for Mom has affected your judgment, too. Maybe you both need professional help. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder of legal documents. I've already spoken with attorneys about guardianship options for both of you. The courts take elder abuse very seriously, especially when family members make unfounded accusations against their caregivers. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. She'd already planned for this contingency, already prepared to paint me as an unstable elderly man, making delusional accusations against his devoted daughter. Get out of my house. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Get out. I roared louder than I'd raised my voice in 20 years. You are not welcome here anymore. You don't have keys. You don't have permission. And if you set foot on this property again without explicit consent, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Natasha gathered her things with shaking hands. At the doorway, she turned back one last time. This isn't over. I'm still your daughter, and Mom is still my mother. A judge will see that I'm the only one trying to help. The door slammed behind her, leaving Donna and me alone in the wreckage of our family. The morning after Natasha's threats, I sat in Thornton Blackthorn's law office, clutching evidence that could destroy my daughter's life. Thornton was everything Augustus had promised. Sharp, experienced, unafraid of family drama. Mr. Pierce, this constitutes serious felony charges. Elder abuse fraud, potentially attempted murder. But we need ironclad evidence. What kind? Medical proof your wife was systematically drugged. Documentation of financial motive. Expert testimony. He leaned forward. We need to prove this was deliberate and ongoing. That afternoon, Donna and I sat at Mission Hospital while technicians drew blood for comprehensive toxicology screening. Results within 24 hours, they explained. Dr. Grant met us the next morning, expression grave. Mrs. Pierce, your blood shows significant diazepam levels consistent with regular dosing over years. The concentration suggests approximately 5 milligrams daily for months. He turned to me. This confirms systematic poisoning. The dosage was calculated to cause cognitive impairment without obvious overdose symptoms. Quite sophisticated in its cruelty. Can you document this? Absolutely. I'll prepare a detailed medical report confirming Mrs. Pierce was deliberately drugged to simulate dementia. My phone buzzed. Dominic landing at Asheville 3 p.m. What the hell is going on? I'd called my son the night before, finally revealing the truth. The silence had stretched nearly a minute before he'd whispered, I'll be on the first flight. Dominic arrived looking age overnight. At 35, he was usually California health and optimism personified. Today, he looked haunted. Dad, please tell me this is a mistake. Natasha didn't actually poison Mom. I handed him medical reports, the veterinary bottle library research. He read everything twice, growing paler. Jesus Christ. She's been slowly killing Mom for 3 years. He looked at Donna. Mom, remember me visiting Christmas? You barely recognized me. I thought you were just getting old. I remember pieces, Donna said softly, like looking through thick glass. I knew I should recognize you, but couldn't reach the memory. Dominic broke down sobbing like the little boy who'd run to his mother with scraped knees. I should have questioned why she deteriorated so fast. Detective Sarah Morrison arrived at 6 with 2 officers. She'd reviewed everything medical reports, veterinary, medication, Dr. Grant's testimony, Natasha's financial records. Mr. Pierce, we have enough for elder abuse, fraud, and reckless endangerment charges. The DA is considering attempted murder depending on case development. My heart hammered. What happens now? We need formal statements from you and Mrs. Pierce. Dr. Grant provided expert testimony. With this evidence, we can obtain an arrest warrant immediately. I thought about the little girl on my shoulders at county fairs who'd cried stepping on butterflies, who'd hugged me tight every bedtime. She's still my daughter. Augustus placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Landon, you're not destroying your daughter. You're protecting your wife. Sometimes that's what love requires. Detective Morrison closed her notepad. The warrant has been issued. We'll arrest her tomorrow morning. Friday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Donna was in the garden tending to her roses with steady hands for the first time in years. I was reading the newspaper when I heard the familiar sound of Natasha's BMW pulling into our driveway. She walked up to the front door with her usual confident stride designer purse slung over her shoulder, carrying a bag from the pharmacy. Everything about her demeanor suggested she believed yesterday's confrontation had been successfully managed, that her threats had intimidated me into silence. Morning, Dad, she called through the screen door. I brought Mom's new prescription. The doctor said it might help with her recent confusion. I didn't answer. Through the window, I could see two unmarked police cars parked discreetly down the street, waiting for my signal. Natasha let herself in with her key, moving toward the kitchen where she'd always prepared Donna's medications. Where's Mom? She should take these right away. She's outside, I said quietly. Something in my tone made her pause. She looked at me more carefully, taking in my expression the way I sat rigidly in my chair. Dad, you seem tense. Are you feeling all right? Before I could respond, there was a firm knock at the front door. Detective Morrison's voice carried through the wood. Asheville Police Department. The color drained from Natasha's face as the reality hit her. The pharmacy bag slipped from her fingers, pills scattering across our hardwood floor. No, she whispered. Dad, you didn't. I opened the door to let Detective Morrison and Officer Williams inside. They moved with professional efficiency, but their expressions were grim. Natasha Pierce, Detective Morrison said formally, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and reckless endangerment in connection with the systematic drugging of Donna Pierce. You have the right to remain silent. Officer Williams continued producing handcuffs. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Natasha's composure shattered completely. She fell to her knees on our living room floor, sobbing with a desperation I'd never seen from her. Daddy, please, she begged, using the name she hadn't called me since childhood. Please don't let them take me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. The sound of her childhood nickname cut through me like a blade. This was my little girl, the one who'd insisted on wearing princess dresses to the grocery store, who'd made me tea parties with imaginary friends. Donna appeared in the doorway from the garden dirt still on her gardening gloves, taking in the scene with growing horror. That's my baby girl, she whispered, moving toward Natasha instinctively despite everything. Ma'am, please step back, Officer Williams said gently but firmly as he helped Natasha to her feet and secured the handcuffs. Dominic had been waiting in the kitchen, unable to watch, but unable to leave. He emerged now, his face etched with guilt and grief. Natasha, I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected Mom sooner. This isn't your fault, Dom. Natasha managed through her tears. It's mine. All of it. As they led her toward the door, she turned back one last time. Mom, I love you. I know you can't forgive me, but I love you. Donna was crying, now too torn between the daughter she'd raised and the woman who'd stolen 3 years of her life. The neighbors had gathered on their porches drawn by the police cars. Mrs. Henderson, from across the street, stood with her hand over her mouth, in shock. The Johnsons whispered urgently to each other, their children peeking out from behind their legs. I watched through the window as they helped Natasha into the back of the patrol car, her designer clothes, in perfect makeup, a stark contrast to the handcuffs and tears. The little girl who'd once caught fireflies in mason jars was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I've lost my daughter to save my wife, I said aloud, the words tasting like ash. Augustus appeared at my side, having witnessed everything from his own porch. You did what you had to do, Landon. Sometimes protecting the people we love means making impossible choices. Detective Morrison handed me a business card before leaving. The trial is scheduled for next month, Mr. Pierce. We'll need you and Mrs. Pierce to testify. The Buncombe County Courthouse buzzed with quiet tension on a gray October morning. I sat in the front row beside Donna, both of us dressed in our Sunday best, watching our daughter enter the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit that made her look younger and more vulnerable than her 38 years. Natasha's attorney, Damien Rothschild, was everything I'd expected from someone charging $500 an hour, expensive suit, silver hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases that should have been lost. He'd flown in from Charlotte specifically for this trial, hired with money Natasha somehow still had access to. Thornton Blackthorne sat at the prosecutor's table, our evidence organized in neat manila folders. Over the past month, he'd become more than our lawyer. He'd become our advocate, someone who understood that this case was about more than legal precedent. The state will prove, Thornton began in his opening statement, that Natasha Pierce systematically poisoned her mother over a period of 3 years, using veterinary-grade sedatives to simulate dementia, while positioning herself to inherit the family's substantial assets. He held up the amber bottle that had started everything. This medication designed for anxious animals was administered daily to Donna Pierce, causing memory loss, confusion, and 3 years of stolen life. Dr. Grant took the witness stand with the gravity of someone who understood his role in this tragedy. The blood work conclusively shows diazepam levels consistent with regular deliberate dosing. This wasn't accidental or medicinal. This was systematic poisoning designed to incapacitate. In your professional opinion, Dr. Grant, was this attempted murder? It was attempted destruction of a human mind. Whether the defendant intended death or just control the result was the same, the deliberate erasure of Donna Pierce's cognitive abilities. Damien Rothschild's cross-examination was aggressive but futile. The evidence was overwhelming: the medication bottle with Natasha's fingerprints, the blood tests, the financial records showing her crushing debt, and most damning of all, the dramatic improvement in Donna's condition once the drugging stopped. When it came time for Natasha to speak, she surprised everyone by standing without prompting. "Your Honor, I want to change my plea to guilty." Rothschild grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, but she shook him off. "I did everything they said I did. I drugged my mother for 3 years because I was desperate and selfish and thought I could get away with it." Her voice cracked. "I told myself I was just making her more manageable, but I knew what I was really doing. I was stealing her mind to save my financial situation." She turned toward our section of the courtroom, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm sorry. I know those words don't mean anything after what I've done, but I need you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was hurting you. Dad, I'm sorry for destroying our family. I'm sorry for making you choose between your wife and your daughter." Judge Patricia Winters, a stern woman in her 60s, who'd seen every kind of family destruction imaginable, showed no emotion as she delivered the sentence. "Natasha Pierce, you have committed one of the most heinous betrayals of trust I've encountered in 20 years on this bench. You systematically poisoned your own mother, stole 3 years of her life, and nearly destroyed her marriage and mental health for financial gain." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the courtroom. "Aikia, I sentence you to 7 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will also pay full restitution for medical expenses, legal fees, and damages to your parents." The gavel's bang echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. Donna broke down completely, then sobbing into her hands. "She's still my baby girl," she whispered over and over. I wrapped my arms around my wife, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd saved. "Justice has been served," I murmured into her hair, but the cost was too damn high. As they led Natasha away in shackles, she looked back one final time. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for just a moment, I saw the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap during bedtime stories. Then she was gone, and we were left to figure out how to rebuild our lives from the wreckage of our family. 6 months later, spring arrived early in Asheville, bringing renewal that mirrored our journey back to wholeness. I found Donna in our garden tending roses she'd stared at blankly for 3 years now, pruning with remembered expertise. "The soil's perfect this year," she said, eyes sparkling with intelligence I'd fallen in love with 42 years ago. "We'll have the best blooms ever." The transformation still amazed me daily. Her memory had returned almost completely, spirit restored. She was volunteering again at the Literacy Center, finding purpose in teaching. I'd retired completely after the trial, turning down contracts that would take me away. At 65, I'd learned no bridge was more important than the woman beside me at breakfast. I lost 3 years with you, I told her one evening. I'm not losing another day. Dominic had relocated from California to Charlotte, just 2 hours away. Guilt over missing the signs had transformed him into the son we'd hoped he'd become. He visited every weekend now. The warning signs were there, he'd said. I chose not to see them. Son, your sister fooled everyone. The important thing is we stopped her. We'd visited Natasha twice at the correctional facility. She looked smaller in prison uniform worn down by her choices. I dream about Mom's face when they put the handcuffs on, she'd said. I'll carry that image forever. Donna had reached across the table. I forgive you, Natasha. I don't understand what you did, and I'll never forget it. But I forgive you because you're still my child. That was 3 months ago. We hadn't returned since. Augustus continued being our rock, stopping by evenings to share beer and wisdom. The tragedy isn't that we trusted Natasha, he'd observed. The tragedy is she chose to exploit that trust, instead of honoring it. I'd started speaking at community centers about elder abuse warning signs. The response was overwhelming. Dozens shared similar concerns, asking for advice. Sometimes the greatest danger comes from those we love most, I tell audiences. Not because love is dangerous, but because it makes us want to believe the best about people, even when evidence suggests otherwise. The house felt lighter now. Donna's laughter filled rooms silent too long. Our marriage, tested by 3 years of confusion, had emerged stronger. We're survivors, Donna said, reading about a similar Tennessee case. Maybe our purpose is helping other families recognize what we missed. As I write this sitting where I first held that amber medication bottle, I'm struck by how much changes when we choose to see truth. Our family will never be the same. We'll always carry betrayal scars and grief over losing a daughter to her choices. But we're alive, we're together, and we're using our pain to protect others. Sometimes that has to be enough. Looking back at this true story, I realize how blind trust nearly destroyed everything I held dear. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs when someone you love starts changing. I trusted completely because Natasha was my daughter, but God teaches us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. The hardest lesson from our grandpa stories isn't about recognizing poison in pill bottles. It's about recognizing when love becomes manipulation, when care becomes control. I spent 3 years watching my wife disappear, telling myself it was natural aging when every instinct screamed something was wrong. God gave me that moment with Dr. Grant for a reason. His whispered warning through a trembling physician who risked everything to tell the truth. But I almost missed it because I couldn't imagine my own child capable of such betrayal. Don't make my mistake. When medications multiply without explanation, when someone insists on controlling all medical decisions, when a family member suddenly becomes indispensable while others are pushed away, pay attention. These aren't coincidences in grandpa stories like mine. They're red flags written in invisible ink. This true story taught me that protecting our loved ones sometimes means protecting them from family. God doesn't promise us easy choices, only the strength to make necessary ones. I nearly lost Donna forever, because I love Natasha too much to see her clearly. Trust but verify. Love but stay vigilant. And remember, the greatest betrayals often come wrapped in the language of care. Our true story proves that even in the darkest family, betrayal's grandpa stories can have endings where justice prevails and love survives, though forever changed. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of survivors and protectors. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting someone you love? Your story might save another family from walking this painful path.